Alright guys, this is a 6.2 Windwalker PvP guide for Warlords of Draenor. So we're going to be covering all the basics of Windwalker, including rotations, your stat priorities, talents, glyphs, macros you can use, don't need to use, and like your basic objectives in an arena, like how you should think and whatnot. So first off, let's start with our talents. So in how I'm going to do this is I'm going to describe to you for Windwalker which ones I think are the best and which ones I don't think are very good or should be used in different scenarios. For example, like PvE or just mobility, right? So first off, our tier 1 talents include Celerity, Tiger's Lust, and Momentum. When starting from the bottom up, I would say Momentum is probably the worst talent in this without a second doubt. Like, there is nothing good about this talent. You get some movement speed for 10 seconds that can stack twice, but you're going to be like in an arena 9 times out of 10, you're slowed permanently, including rated battlegrounds, which makes this talent completely mitigated. So there's no reason you should ever be running Momentum. If you do, then either you found a new meta or I just haven't actually tried it out. Second best talent I would say out of this is Celerity. Celerity increases your charges of roll by 1, so if you go from 2 to 3, and reduces the cooldown of it by half a second. Or 5 seconds, my bad. And this is actually a pretty good talent depending on situations. So for example, if you're going against just a 3v3 arena composition that doesn't have many roots, like entangling roots or for Ice Nova or anything like that, this could be really useful because Chi Torpedo is actually a really big burst ability right now with how Windwalker meta is. So you can use this for damage or just all around getting away from the other team, right? That describes it in a nutshell, but I don't like, personally me, I don't like this talent as well because I'm getting rid of such a great ability, which is Tiger's Lust, which I'm going to be using just that third charge for more damage because that's how Windwalker is built. So then our tier 1 talent is Tiger's Lust. This is by far the best talent in the bunch. Like, you can get out of roots, you can get out of snares, increase your movement speed by 70% every 30 seconds. You can use it on partners. It's an all-around best ability that can help anybody in any situation that you actually need. So, from the bottom up, I'd say Momentum is the worst. Celerity can be used, but not necessary. Tiger's Lust should be used 9 times out of 10. For our level 30 talent tree, we have Chi Wave, Zen Sphere, and Chi Burst. For the bottom talent, again, it would be probably Zen Sphere. I mean, you get an orb on somebody or an ally or an enemy, and it just does ticking damage for 16 seconds. That doesn't even do very much damage, like 600 damage times 8. It's not very high. And then after, it just detonates and causes another 7,000 to 10,000 healing on partners, or if it's used on a partner, 10,000 damage to nearby enemies. This is by far just a horrible talent, even though you can use it every 10 seconds. You might think of it like, okay, but I could have 2 Zen Spheres up on my partners at the same time, just healing them. But it doesn't say this in the description of it, but you can only have 1 Zen Sphere up at a time. Next up, I'd say is Chi Wave. Honestly, I love Chi Wave as just a mop monk. I love it. I miss mop. I remember using this. It was so much fun, but how it is right now is it's such a short cooldown, yes, but there's a really weird bug with it at the moment where all 7 ticks don't go off, and sometimes they don't take your stats into effect, so Chi Wave doesn't regularly crit or multi-strike or get any benefit from versatility. So it's just a wasted talent at the moment, especially if you don't get the proper ticks, because I've used this multiple times. I love this talent again, as I've said before. And I've only gotten like 2 ticks out of it, and it makes me really salty. So this is usable, but I don't recommend it right now in the current meta, which is 6.2. For your best talent in this tree, I'd say Chi Burst. It's almost a 1 second cast, a 30-second cooldown, but when you take in consideration the comparison to Chi Wave, you're doing twice the damage at the same cooldown spent. So like 2 15-second cooldowns is the equivalent to 30 seconds. But you're using Chi Burst for burst 9 times out of 10. Of course, you could use it to heal yourself with stacks of Tiger's Eye Brew. And by doing that, you can hit upwards of 100,000 to 180,000 of a Chi Burst hit on an enemy player, or just an 80k heal on yourself. and this can multi-strike up to 3 times. So, bottom to the top, Zen Sphere, Chi Wave, Chi Burst. On our level 45 talent tree, we have Power Strikes, Ascension, and Chi Brew. Bottom up, I'd say Power Strikes is probably the worst out of this. I mean, the only thing you get out of this is every 15 seconds you get an extra Chi from your jab, like, or Expel Harm. Completely useless, and it just summons a Chi Sphere that you normally just get from just doing your damage every time when you're full Chi. But with how Monk is at the moment, once again, you're never gonna be full Chi more than 2 seconds. Second best talent would be Ascension. So this gives you your energy regen increased by 15% and spirit regen by 10%. Obviously, the latter is pretty bad because of Windwalker. You don't need spirit. And then you also increase your Chi by 1. So you go up from 5 Chi right now to 6 Chi. At lower levels, I think this could be used, but when you're playing at level 100, you really don't have a need for that 6th Chi, and the energy regen really is not worth it in comparison to what Chi Brew can do. So, I mean, you could probably find some situations where this works, but I haven't found that one yet. Alright, and then our best talent here is the Chi Brew. 1 minute recharge, but gives you 2 Chi, 2 stacks of Tiger's Eye Brew, and has 2 charges. So this is probably the best talent because, well, first of all, you get 4 Chi basically for just having 2 of those brews. And then on top of that, you get 4 stacks minimum of Tiger's Eye Brew. Best part about this is it's affected by our mastery, which currently increases how many Tiger's Eye Brew, well, it increases the chance we get that our Tiger's Eye Brew gives us an extra 1. So in theory, we could get up to upwards of 8 or 9 Tiger's Eye Brew every time we use 2 Chi Brew, which is really good for how fast you get it. So upwards from the bottom, Power Strikes, then Ascension, and then Chi Brew. For our level 60 talent tree, we have Ring of Peace, Charging Ox Wave, and Leg Sweep. Honestly, I hate this talent tree. I don't think it should be in the game. They should replace it, all of them. But I think the worst talent here may be Charging Ox Wave. It's a 30-second cooldown that is a ranged stun. It goes 30 yards, so you can make it work, but it only stuns them for 3 seconds, which is really bad in comparison to what your fist can do. So I just don't like this talent, period. Next best I'd say is Ring of Peace. A 40-yard range, 45-second cooldown Ring of Peace. So what this does is you place this on a friendly target or an enemy. I actually think they removed the enemy, so that's my bad. But it stays around them for 8 seconds and encaps any enemy within that ring for 5 seconds every time they try to use a harmful spell or ability. So, for example, if I was to use Ring of Peace on my healer and there was a warrior just targeting him and doing damage, if he tried to use Rend on him, he would be incapacitated for 5 seconds if he was in that ring. I think this is really good. It has situations. I know this is amazing in rated battlegrounds for Windwalker if you can find a team to use it. Then our best talent here would be Leg Sweep. It's a 45-second AoE stun, and it just knocks down people within 5 yards for 5 seconds. I mean, it's a bad talent, but it's a good talent at the same time. You get a stun for free for 5 seconds, almost a Hodge in a sense. So, bottom to top, Charging Ox Wave, Ring of Peace, and then Leg Sweep. Our level 75 talent tree is, there's no real bad talents in this, I should say. Just starting off. Everyone has its place, especially with how bursty Warlords of Draenor is. So I'm going to say from the bottom up, I'd say Dampen Harm is possibly the worst, but of course it has its best. So it's a 1.5 minute cooldown. It's the same thing as Diffuse in a sense, but this reduces damage by 50% from 3 attacks that damage you for 15% or more of your maximum health. And you can use this while stunned. So if I was to use this and there was a warrior hitting me, now warriors right now hit upwards of 180,000 mortal strikes before their recklessness and avatars and all that garbage. So this could, in theory, be amazing against comps like TSG, which is just a really heavy damage melee comp. But against comps like God Comp or Shatter, I should say, it's horrible because they don't use melee. So, I mean, I haven't found a use for this. I'm sure it's useful. There's no real definitive second best talent, but if I'm going to say one, I'd say Healing Elixirs. What this does is every 18 seconds you get a new, like, a buff on you in a sense, where every time you use a brew, so for example, if I had this, Let me just switch out to this, and we're going to wait for this. So it's popped up. Every time I use a brew or tea with this buff up, we get 15% of our health back. So I'm going to use my Tiger's Eye brew. Of course, my health's not down, so the healing effect doesn't come in. But using that Tiger's Eye brew, I get the effect on this. So really good if you're going against comps where you don't need to resist magic. So I would say this is a pretty damn good talent. And on top of this, when you're below 35%, it's just, you get it. It's about simple as it gets. And then for another really good talent on this tree is Diffuse Magic. This is a 1.5 minute cooldown similar to what Dampen Harm is. It reduces magic damage taken by 90% for 6 seconds and transfers all harmful effects back to the original caster if possible. What this is essentially is a bubble, but it's not a perma bubble. So let's say there's a warlock on me, like an affliction warlock. He's putting his full row of dots on me: corruption, agony, and unstable affliction. When I use this, it reflects all those dots back to that warlock. So if his healer decides to dispel him, then he takes the silence that unstable affliction would have on him. And on top of that, any magic damage for those 6 seconds is reduced by 90%. So this is essentially a very good, it's really good diffuse against any kind of caster comps, I would say, like God comp again or MLS. It's just, I like this talent. So bottom up, I'd say they're all pretty good, but Dampen Harm, Healing Elixirs, Diffuse Magic. For our level 90 tree, we have Rushing Jade Wind, Invoke Zuen the White Tiger, and Chi Torpedo. Alright, I hate this tree, as I've said with the level 60 tree. I think it should be removed. Right now, in the current meta, you need Chi Torpedo for damage, which is horrible, because that's just, it should be a mobility use. It shouldn't be anything else. So, when you use this, using it for damage, if anything. I'm not even getting into this tree because it's all bad, but bottom up, Invoke Zuen, Rushing Jade Wind, Chi Torpedo. I mean, I miss Rushing Jade Wind, it was fun, but we don't have the energy regen in the current state to use it. Invoke Zuen is horrible, just end the discussion. You summon a pet for 45 seconds that does little to no damage. And Chi Torpedo is just damage. So, they should just remove this tree in the game. And then for our level 100 talent tree, we have Hurricane Strikes, Chi Explosion, and Serenity. Bottom up, I'd say it would be Serenity. It's a 1.5 minute cooldown that puts you into it gives you a buff for 10 seconds that allows all abilities that use Chi just to be instantly refilled. So if I was using, like, I would have Blackout Kick. So every time I have 2 Chi and I had the Serenity up, when I use Blackout Kick, this would go down to 0 and then back up to 2 and repeat as long as this buff is inactive. So it's good, but you can CC this, as you quite obviously can tell. Second best, I'd say, is Hurricane Strikes. Just, it's an AoE damage ability that you can't get CC'd in. So if you can pull this off, you can do a lot of damage and possibly just 100-0 somebody in a couple seconds. But the one issue is that it targets the closest person to you. So if the other team is smart, they'll stack on top of you so that the damage might get split onto somebody else who's not taking the brunt of it or being focused down. And that allows the person who's being focused down to live longer and possibly live for the win. So this is, in my opinion, this is my favorite talent, but it's not very definitive in how you use it. And then for our best talent here, it's Chi Explosion. Every Chi gives you a new ability, as you can see, like a new addition to what it does, as you can see. Honestly, you don't need to go past 3 Chi, but I mean, I use 4 all the time just because it's so good. But it just, it's a dot, so you can do a lot with it, and this helps your damage go up. When you compare yourself before using Chi Explosion to now, to after, your DPS goes up by at least 20 to 40,000. It's a very big help. It's very low Chi cost, and all you need to ever do is get 3 Chi for it, for a maximum output. Next up, we're going to talk about our glyphs and what we need to run as a baseline, and what we can use after. So right now in the current meta, Touch of Death is a needed glyph. You use all your Chi all the time to do all the damage you can possibly do to get them to 10%. So this glyph essentially takes away the Chi cost of Touch of Death, so you can use it as long as they're below 10%. And it increases the cooldown by 2 minutes. It doesn't matter the cooldown because in an arena situation, if you get the kill, you win. 9 times out of 10, you won't ever come down to cross kill. So this is just amazing as a glyph itself. You don't need the chi cost. You can just ham somebody and then press touch of death and they're dead. And you win. Your next best talent, next glyph is going to be Touch of Karma. This just increases the range of Touch of Karma by 20 yards. And Touch of Karma by default is 5 yards. This isn't all that necessary, but I like it personally because I have such a hard time getting Karma off, especially against laggy teams. It's a pain in the ass. So I highly recommend this glyph, but it isn't needed. If you find yourself not needing this, I would recommend you not use it. Your next one is Flying Fists. Increases the range of Fist of Fury by 5 yards. So when Warlords of Draenor launched, they changed how Fist of Fury works, and they moved it from a 25-yard range ability and put it to a 5-yard range. And this just increases it by 5 yards, but that's really big because right now, people like to lag. So it's really hard to land a good Fist of Fury that will do a lot of damage or even keep them in a stun. Because once they trinket, they're just gone. You're not going to get them. So it's safer to have this and be able to hit them. So I highly recommend this. But again, it's not needed if you can find yourself in a non-laggy situation. And then for glyphs that you can use but you don't really need to, it would be Glyph of Paralysis, which just removes all effects over time off the target. Only really useful if you're playing with a caster like a Warlock or a Fire Mage or a just any dot caster. There's no real use to this, but it's useful sometimes. And then there's Freedom Roll you can use, which just your roll, Chi Torpedo, or Flying Serpent Kick dispels all snares affecting you when used. So if you're going against another Windwalker, for say, and I put both my disables on him, it roots him. So if I was to use that glyph, if he was to use that glyph, he could just roll right out of that root and get rid of it. It's a good talent in my opinion, but glyph. It's not entirely useful. And then just the rest of these aren't they're either bad or just not useful in the current meta. So next, let's talk about macros. So with macros, I mean, there's not really many macros to use. I mean, I could use a lot more, but I don't. So the only ones I really use personally are my Tiger's Eye Brew and On Use Trinket. It makes sure they both go off to increase my maximum damage. I also have a target focus macro. It's just a focus macro. I mean, this helps a lot if you're in an arena and perhaps you disconnect and your add-ons aren't working. So you need to put somebody in focus. Just put this on your bar and you target them. Another good one is Cast Transcendence World Marker one. So what this does in a sense is when I go to cast Transcendence, it gives me a marker benefit. And when I put that down, it shows me where it is. I always put this on top of my Transcendence so I remember where it is. There's nobody that can say I don't know where it is. So I can always see this. I know where my Transcendence is. I just need to only thing I need to do is make sure that this stays down. And the final one is a Storm, Earth, and Fire macro, which just is a target focus. These are the only real ones I use, in the exception of Focus Paralysis. But these are the only real ones you need to use as a Windwalker. Other ones you could, in theory, use would be a Focus Touch of Karma, Focus Touch of Death, a Focus Kick, but this is really hard to pull off. And that's about it. So let's move on to stat priority and gear. So Windwalker right now in the meta is pretty crappy. Like, we're crappy. Our stat priority currently would be haste is the same as multi-strike, versatility. I think it's crit. This varies between Windwalkers, but crit, and then everything else is below this. This is just baseline for what I think, because right now Windwalker has really crappy energy regen, so haste is our best talent, but at the same time our multi-strike is really strong. I can hit, like, my Rising Sun Kick in the current meta can hit 120k, and then I can multi-strike an 80k. It hits really hard, so multi-strike helps. Versatility is also just a good stat in PvP in general. Everybody should use it. It's just a free wall in a sense. Crit is horrible. I mean, oh crappy. Other than that, what you should be doing for gear as a Windwalker is you should be looking at like the rank 1 Windwalkers first of all, like myself, Balance, Zorian, Day, Venfuki, I guess. And just copy your gear, honestly. We enchant into right now. I enchant to a war song on my two-handed staff, but I think you could easily go Thunderlord on your staff and do just as well. Your rings should cloak and necklace should all be versatility enchanted the best as possible, because that, again, as I've said earlier, versatility is a free wall that everybody should use. There's no reason you should not be using it. It is so strong and so beneficial to every single person that you're doing so much work with it, and it can just save you in so many situations. Like when I play with my Death Knight friend in 3v3 arenas, he against a Shatter, which is Mage, Shadow Priest, Healer, he will run a full versatility DK set just so he takes so little damage that he does not die ever. But at the same time, he does a lot of damage still. Your unused trinket should be your agility versatility, but I know you can find a different one. It's just, I don't like the other one in my opinion. And then you can use the versatility proc agility for your other one, but you can also use the versatility and agility baseline instead of that. They both work very well. So from there, let's move on to our add-ons. So, I mean, there's not many add-ons, and keep in mind I have a lot of add-ons. This is for multiple reasons, but I do everything in this game. So, first add-on you should use for if you're a rated battleground kind of person, I'd say you need battleground targets for sure. You need to know what the other team has, you need to see it, all that crap. Chi bar is also a really good one. If you look to the left of my screen, you can see that every time I get chi, it shows up here. This is how I keep track of it. Of course, you could probably find a better spot for it. It's just how I like it. Cooldown's 4.3.1. It's a pretty good add-on. It just basically when something's on cooldown, it puts the number there. It's currently buggy at the moment, but it works. Gladius is another one. When you're in an arena, it just gives the basic look of everything they have, trinkets, if they're on like a DR, if what their health is, just their class, their spec. It's good stuff. Omnibar is also a good one, but it's not useful for DPS. I would honestly use Omni CC. It shows more cooldowns and is a lot stronger. Tell me when it can be useful, but there's nothing you really need to move around on your screen. Serena can be changed in for Gladius if you don't like Gladius, and Weak Auras is good if you want to have like a different UI than other people. So from there, let's go into our rotation. So the first thing we're going to talk about is our burst rotation. And then we're going to talk about dual rotation and arena rotation. What I mean by this is what you want to prioritize in senses of each situation. So first, before I get into this like heavily, I want to talk about some abilities that you need to keep track on for Windwalker. So Rising Sun Kick, you want to keep a look at this. When I Rising Sun Kick him, he gets Immortal Strike, which reduces healing effects on him by 25% for 8 seconds. And Rising Sun Kick, another one, which increases all damage dealt by the monk by 20%. So these are really two good abilities. They increase how much damage you do in a sense, and it's all around strong. The next one you did keep track of is Tiger's Palm. Tiger Power, as I should say, your attack is north 30% armor. Right now, armor is really strong. You need to keep an eye on it. 30% armor is a really big benefit to you. You should be using this all the time. If you don't have this up before you're bursting, you are smoking something, and I don't want to talk to you. The next one is Chi Explosion. This is just a dot that deals damage over time. Obviously, you can see it doesn't tick very high, but this over time does a lot. So I would honestly try and keep at least a 1 stack up if you can, but obviously with regen right now, you can't really do that. Next up is your Tiger's Eye Brew. This just increases damage by, I believe, 4%, if I'm not mistaken. 6%, my bad. 6% per stack of Tiger's Eye Brew. And increases your healing done and damage per stack. So you can go upwards to 60%. But at the same time, you're always running your 4 pieces of Windwalker, which is every time you consume a stack of Tiger's Eye Brew, each stack grants you 2% damage reduction for 20 seconds. This is a 10 stack. If you can keep a 10 stack up at all time, you have a permanent 40% wall up for 20 seconds apiece. And in 20 seconds, you can get those 10 stacks back and get that wall back up. And if you're really crafty, what you can do is you can pop all your Tiger's Eye brew and your fortifying brew to reduce all damage by 60% and increase your health by 20%. So you can just mitigate all damage. Other than that, I mean, the only other ones you need to really know about would be your Surging Mist, but this is just a heal. One you can use, though, is Storm, Earth, and Fire. This is what you can use for cleaving. It just puts an image on the target, and it copies everything you do. So I Rising Sun Kick, it will Rising Sun Kick. Or at least it should. It's not doing it at the moment. But this works. If you want to cleave, what I would do is I would stack 2 people together, put the image on one, and get a 4-stack Chi Explosion and use it. This will benefit that because it has 2 dots ticking on each of them. So it's starting to do a lot of damage to them, plus the baseline damage it already has done. Another thing you should keep in mind is that we have Nimble Brew, which is just a free trinket, and reduces duration of stun effects by 60% for 6 seconds after you use it. And then Energizing Brew, 60 energy over 6 seconds, 1 minute cooldown. It's just a good benefit if you're bursting. You don't have any energy. So, as I've said before, your burst rotation... Okay, so your burst rotation. When you're bursting, what I like to do is I like to open with a Tiger's Eye... What I like to do is do all my damage as fast as possible. So, what I'll do is I'll Expel Harm in the opener, or Jab, depending on the situation. Chi Brew. Go to my Rising Sun Kick, Tiger's Palm. Jab, Chi Brew, Chi Explosion, Jab, Jab, Leg Sweep, up all my stacks and my unused trinket, Chi Burst, cast it, Rising Sun Kick, roll, roll, and Fist of Fury. One thing you should know about Chi Torpedo when you're bursting is most situations you don't have a wall, so you can't just run into the wall, Chi Torpedo, and do that damage. So how you want to use this for damage in like an open scenario like I did, you want to jump, roll. This minimizes how far you roll away from the target and maximizes how much damage you do. And on top of it, there's a bug with it currently, where if the person walks out of it quickly and then back into it, it will tick twice and do a lot of damage. So that's your first one. That's just your burst rotation. You should really... Obviously, this can change at any time. Sometimes you only need your Fist of Fury and Rising Sun Kick because you can't get a cast off or you don't have the time to build up. You just need the kill as fast as possible. So if you can just pull at least those 2 off, I can almost guarantee you're going to put them into a position where they need to use at least a cooldown. Your dual rotation, honestly, this is a pretty crappy one to explain, but it's the exact same as arena rotation. You prioritize keeping up your Rising Sun Kick and Tiger's Palm. You will use nothing else to prioritize. So once you have those 2 up, you'll know because you'll have the debuff on the target and you'll have your own Tiger Power buff up. After that point, you just gotta build up stacks all the time. So Chi Explosion at least at 3 Chi so that you get the benefit of that extra charge it generates. And by doing that, you maximize the output you have as a monk. So what I mean by this is when you're just running around, if you have Rising Sun Kick up, first of all, like if it's off cooldown, you want to use that as soon as possible. It's so much damage, it gives you a mortal strike, and it helps your own damage. Like, it's a lot for you. So try and keep this up as much as possible. Other than that, I mean, the exact same as rain rotation. Just prioritize those 2. You never want to use Chi Explosion when you don't have at least a 3 Chi. And another good thing about Chi Explosion is that you can sometimes proc like my Tiger's Palm does or Blackout Kick does, and you can just get that for free, but it generates 2 Chi back after you use it. So what I would do is, personally, I would go to 5 Chi, and then I would use that proc, which brings you back down to 1, but the added effect of having 2 more, which puts you back at 3. So you could just Fist of Fury right off that. From there, your rotations it benefits all the time. Tiger's Lust out of roots, Rising Sun Kick, Flying Serpent Kick just to get away if you need to, or to catch up. Paralysis as either CC or to gap close. And what I mean by gap close is, if he's running away from me, and I'm rooted, I'll sap him, and run forward slowly because I'm rooted. And I'll keep going my damage. So, disable is probably another really good ability. You want to keep this up on the target as much as possible because it just slows them. And then another thing we have, I should probably point out, is Tiger Strikes. What this does is every auto attack has a 10% chance to increase multi-strike by 35% for 8 seconds. I've explained this before, multi-strikes equal to haste over versatility. Multi-strike is really strong for Windwalkers. We can hit very, very hard with it. And it allows us to do more. And on top of that, our Wind Flurry gives us 5% multi-strike. So let's just go over our passives right now. So our first one is Afterlife. Whenever you kill something, that gives you experience or honor. So if you kill like a pet in arena, it'll summon a healing spear, which you can walk through for health. And when you kill something with Chi Explosion, you have a chance of summoning a Chi Sphere. So, I mean, that's pretty straightforward to what it's saying. Next one is Battle Trance. 15% more multi-strike stats from all sources. As I've said, Windwalker is haste versatility over... Sorry, haste multi-strike over versatility. Empowered Chi gives you another Chi. We used to have 4, now we have 5 by meta. Empowered Spinning Kick. Horrible. This is horrible. I don't even know why they put this in the game. It just makes this go off twice as fast. And it just lasts 50%. Like, I don't understand that. Like, it's horrible. Then we have Enhanced Roll. You go the same distance as roll we used to do, but in 25% less time. So you do it in 3/4 of a second, in a sense. Enhanced Transcendence. We used to cast Transcendence. And they took that out because people didn't like it. It was a way to live, and we could just get kicked on it by people who use kickbots. So they decided to reduce the cooldown, first of all, on Transcendence, which used to be 45 seconds, and let our transfer be an instant cast instead. Then we have Way of the Monk. So when you're using one-handed weapons, you deal 25% more auto attack damage, but with two-handed weapons, you attack 55% faster. So in the current meta right now, you can use both weapons. You can use dual wield or two-handed. But if you use two-handed, you can do more damage faster because it hits harder for right now. And with Warsong, you're already getting haste increase. So add that to the 55% increased speed with two-handed weapons, and you're just hitting really fast. Like, really, like, it's a 0.00 something seconds between attacks. Really fast, really strong. Stacks can help us a lot. And that's about it. So I'm going to end this off with our arena objectives. So what we should do, what our mindset should be. So what Windwalkers do right now is what I've noticed personally as a Windwalker. Our class sucks. We should not be a class at all in PvP at the moment because of how crappy we are. Windwalker is so bloody bad. I want to re-roll to a Death Knight. I'd probably have 3,000 rating, even the highest rated person in the world, and it would be so easy. But as a Windwalker, our role in PvP is to be a nuisance. Like, my job here is just going to keep him to perma-root, okay? He's never going to move as long as I'm spamming disable. Like, I won't let him get away. And then if he does get away, I'll just stun him. We're literally just a nuisance at this point in the game, and out of that stun, I can just stun him again. Then I can just sap him out of that. I have so many ways to stop him from moving that they hate us. And on top of that, Serpent Kick, I can just slow him even more. What else we do is, like, we have pretty hefty burst damage. I mean, we can be used in comps like Windwalker Warrior, like Windwalker Assassination Rogue, and just we can run in, stun, and one shot in the opener. You don't need any sort of brain powers to run and get your stacks blown up. Your Fist of Fury is your biggest damage. It can hit so hard. It can hit so fast. It is dumb. But what your mindset should be, honestly, when you're playing Windwalker in PvP, you should be understanding that your class sucks. Like, okay, every class has its downs. Warrior is really bad at healing. It dies really easily, but they have really burst damage. Most warriors understand that their class may be bad at living, but given time and power, they can just global you. Like, you'll just fall over. And you need to understand that you may be a bad spec. Windwalker might be horrible, but you can get through things very fast, and you're one of the most mobile classes in the game. Obviously not the most mobile compared to Rogue and Druid, but you're up there. You can get away, you can live, And on top of it, you can off heal. So, I mean, you're basically hybrid. Obviously, not at the moment because of how crappy the healing is, but it's so strong. You can just keep a partner alive long enough for your healer to come out of CC and start healing him again. But, and just another thing about Windwalker is like, you need to understand that Windwalker might be bad now. It's never been a really good spec. I mean, it's had its ups and downs, but we've never been really good, and we need to most of us need to understand that the class itself is good, but it's the player that makes the class really good. Like, if I didn't know what I was doing as Windwalker, I would have never broken 2700. I'm horrible if I didn't know what I was doing. But as I learned more and more about the meta and got better at understanding it, my rating went up. My skill began to develop. Obviously, I've been a pretty long time gladiator and rank 1. But I was bad at Monk at first. Like, I couldn't get past 2k as Windwalker. Over time, I got better. I started understanding things, and I learned from my mistakes. That's what it's about. You need to learn from your mistakes, and you need to go past that. If you can't get past that, you're never going to get far in PvP. I mean, maybe you don't want to get far. Maybe you don't want to go pro at WoW or something. I mean, that's your call, obviously. But if you want to, you really need to learn from your mistakes. This is why I recommend, even if you just stream, like, if you don't stream for the money and you just want to do it to have that thing to look at, I recommend you stream and look at your games in the past so that you can understand, like, where you went wrong, how you could have done better, and what you could have done to improve. So you just got to understand that mistakes are mistakes. You got to learn from them and pick up on them. I mean, other than that, there isn't much to talk about Windwalker. I mean, like, we're a pretty versatile class, but in the current meta, we just suck so much dick, and it's not even funny. I honestly recommend you reroll, but if you want to have fun, I would try this class out. Other than that, I think this is the end, so have a good day.